Welcome back to the Solid Verbal. Boys and girls, my name is Ty Hildebrand. That fine gentleman over there, you know him well. You love him. Sometimes you hate him. His name is Dan Rubenstein, sir. We made it. It is week 0. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's steamy out, which is why you know it's still week 0 out here in the Chicagoland area. I just went upstairs to get some water, and some of the windows are steaming, Ty, because it's like 100 degrees out today and humid. So I don't know if that's a symbol of some kind about the season starting up, but I'll take it as one if that's okay with you. How you doing?
I am doing well. I am excited to finally talk about some games. It's a very limited slate.
Yeah.
As you know, we've got our ticker going across the bottom for those watching the video of the handful of games that we're going to discuss here on today's preview podcast, but it's great to have some actual college football to discuss. We've talked about so much of the other stuff here in the offseason, but actual game stuff feels really good on the soul, especially if you are as big a college football fan as Dan and I. Don't forget, you can go out and you can follow and subscribe to the podcast on your podcasting app of choice. You can also watch along on YouTube and hit subscribe while you're out there as well. Also, head on out to verballers.com for our updated Patreon tiers, which we talked about in the last episode, Dan.
Absolutely. No, there's a ton there. And look, you mentioned it. I'll echo it. If you love podcasts, if you love this podcast, but you want to laugh in the face of advertisements on your podcasts, verballers.com is your only option.
Get ad-free episodes. Also, you can play in our Run the Board game. Week 1, the winner of that game gets a PS5, which we cleared up with all the necessary people. We can afford it, which is great because I announced it a little bit in advance. If you win, obviously, the full season-long game, you get a spot in our board of trustees. That is Run the Board. You also get access to scheme breakdown videos with our friend Jeff Schwartz, who's going to take some of the biggest moments of college football this season.
Yes.
And break them down in video form.
Not just moments, games, Ty, games.
Absolutely.
Full on, like, look, if Clemson's running this defense to completely stifle Notre Dame, Jeff is going to show examples over the course of a game, not just moments, Ty, but all the big stuff. I cannot wait for those scheme videos. He's bringing his spoon along because, of course, he is.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's of course, required.
Yeah.
Extended access to our Monday episodes. You get one bonus episode every week on Thursdays. Plus, you can be part of our great Verballer Discord, Dan. The reviews to our updated tiers have been overwhelmingly positive. We're so excited.
Love to hear that. Verballers.com to learn more and support the show. We're putting everything we possibly have. We're putting our marriages on the line for this show. Please support the show. We really do appreciate all of your emotional and financial support. It is much needed. So thank you very much. Hey, real quick, thanks for stopping by. Now would be a terrific time to subscribe to the Solid Verbal for college football videos all season long.
On today's episode, we're going to walk through news. There have been some quarterback announcements that we need to address. We're also going to talk through all of the games in week 0, give you a sense for how we feel about each. We have a Q&A that we put together as well, people sending in questions from across the Verballer hood, and we will close things out with one of your favorite segments. Why don't we get right into college football news?
I'll do it, Ty. I'll do it. Save your voice. Breaking news!
Thank you, Dan. I have this tea here with me. I'm still mending the vocal cords. But alas, we've got quarterback announcements. We got quarterback announcements from all across college football.
Yes.
I've got a handful of them here in front of me. Let me know if I miss any that are of real consequence to you. The big one, I think, was Arizona State with Jaden Rashada, the true freshman who at one point was committed to Miami, then to Florida, and then decided, well, that's not working. I'm going to go to Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham going with the true freshman, which is exciting in and of itself. We had the news at Georgia about Carson Beck officially getting the nod. We had been tipped off, I think, many moons ago that he was the guy. It seemed as if it was his job to lose back in spring, but Carson Beck officially the starting quarterback at Georgia. Haynes King getting the nod, the transfer. Haynes King from Texas A&M getting the nod at Georgia Tech for Brent Key. Illinois going with Luke Altmaier, the one-time Ole Miss quarterback who has transferred up to Champaign. We've got DJU officially the quarterback at Oregon State. I don't know if there was much doubt there, but that was made official.
I mean, a different guy led them to double-digit wins last year. It's not nothing.
We also have, this is, I think, an earlier announcement, but Tyler Shuck, the official starter at Texas Tech. Casey Thompson, you remember him?
Yes.
Casey Thompson getting the nod at Florida Atlantic. And just an updated Mizzou news, because I know we have a lot of Mizzou listeners. We had a lot of people watch our Mizzou content out on YouTube. Eli Drinkwitz, at least for week 1, has listed Brady Cook and Sam Horn as the starting quarterbacks.
Peyton Thorne, did you mention, at Auburn?
Peyton Thorne at Auburn, another big one, yeah.
Ober Robbie Ashford, yeah, he was named. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that sparked anything in my mind. What are the outstanding battles that you're interested in? Like UCLA is a little bit interesting, right? The Dante Moore factor, whether it's Ethan Garbers, if it's Colin Schlee. There's the battle there because of Dante Moore's status as a 5-star and like the biggest quarterback recruit of the modern era for UCLA. Are there any other outstanding ones? Alabama's the huge one.
I think Alabama is at time
Ohio
of recording.
State. I don't
probably
think we've heard
the big
anything.
One.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything official, I guess, at Michigan State, whether it's Noah Kim or Kattenhauser.
Right.
That's
Ohio
one
State?
that we're watching closely. Yeah, Ohio State, we just assume it's going to be Kyle McCord.
Right.
But I suppose there's something of an open question there.
Mm-hmm. The Jaden Rashada news is interesting. There was word that Drew Pine may have hurt himself a little bit a while ago or a couple weeks ago, but Jaden Rashada being thrown into the fire as a true freshman, and numbers suggest that school number 3, Arizona State, may not be the last school, just because every quarterback seems to be on the move. Otherwise, what else is there that's out there that's floating in the ether that's interesting quarterback battle-wise? I mean, we've got big schools there that are still outstanding, in Ohio State and Alabama specifically, but it doesn't seem like it's a huge. Graham Mertz was named at Florida.
Yeah, Graham Mertz.
That was sort of expected and sort of a bummer all at the same time.
Look, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Unless you really want to go down and plumb the depths of college football and talk about the 5-way quarterback battle at Old Dominion,
I'm ready.
I think we got most of them.
Yeah.
I think we got most of them here. And that is sort of what dominates the news. I don't know if we want to go into any great amount of depth with the self-imposed 3-game ban, now 3-game ban for Jim Harbaugh, down from 4 at Michigan. That whole ordeal was not agreed to by the NCAA Committee on Infractions. Therefore, the self-imposed ban that was proposed was not accepted, but they're going to do it anyway. More to come on this one, probably in the offseason 2024. Any other news that is top of mind for you as we head into week 0?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a lot of stuff coming out of fall camp, injuries. You see, unfortunately, this is when ACLs seem to be at their weakest. And so,
unfortunately, yeah,
it's the worst to see those kinds of fall camp injuries. I'm trying to think if there was anything specifically that stands out to me that we're not going to hit either in a week 0 preview or the Q&A portion of the show. You get some extensions and contracts, but no, I think that's good.
Shall I play the sound for the first time this season?
Please.
Are you ready?
I now am.
Cracking my knuckles. Dan, let's do it.
Dan, time, help. I need picks of the week.
It is here. Games are here.
Yeah.
Doing
Absolutely
a fist bump on the camera.
Absolutely, they are.
Games are here. I'm so sick of talking about conference realignment. I am so sick of talking about transfers and NIL implications and Jim Harbaugh, you name it. Let's talk about some actual on-field action. Dan, let's talk about the game across the pond at Aviva Stadium in Dublin, Ireland, 2:30 on NBC. It is the Navy midshipmen. It is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame favored by 21 points, Dan. That's a big number.
It is.
In week 0 against a team that only lost to you by 3 points a year ago. Things have changed considerably if you are a Notre Dame fan. However, this is one of those rivalry matchups, right? One of those games that, at least over the last 20 years, has at points had a history of being close. Not consistently, but it always seems like when you least expect it. Navy, at least under Ken Niumatalolo, Navy, had its moments against Notre Dame. Obviously, this offseason was loaded with news. It is easy to forget the Ken Niumatalolo news on the Navy side, i.e. he's not the coach there. anymore. This year, it's going to be Brian Newberry. He was promoted from within. He was a defensive coordinator under Ken Niumatalolo. He had done a really good job, especially building up a rush defense, which we can talk a little bit more about as we go through this.
Well,
preview,
certainly the pass defense was just as good, right? Is that how it works?
No.
Or was it the worst in America? Continue.
It was not an ideal pass defense. The rush defense was considerably better, and we can talk about that and the wrinkles that it provided last year, how it might factor in this year. But how you feeling, man? How do you feel about this game?
Well, first of all, if you're not subscribed at youtube.com/@solidverbal, you fully missed Ty's dog in the background of his studio right there.
I started talking about Notre Dame Navy. She decided she wanted to be part of the action. Yeah.
No, she's roaming around. You'll see some fluff floating around there. I feel, I don't know, you have to go all the way back to what? The halcyon days of 2022 for a close matchup between these two teams when Navy was still sort of reeling from, a down period. It's still a down period for Navy football considering the highs of the Ken Niumatalolo era, but that was what, a 3-point game? I think Navy came back. But
it was one of those games where I think the final score made it appear closer than it actually was.
Yes.
Notre Dame had ample opportunity to put that game on ice. Right. And what it amounted to, from my vantage point, was Navy, with a legitimately good ground defense, was able to kind of bottle up that side of what Notre Dame wanted to do. Notre Dame was very, very one-dimensional last season. It needed a ground game in order to unlock some passing lanes down the field for Drew Pine.
Right.
But Navy realized that, hey, we got to bring the heat. We don't necessarily have the athletes to match up in space. We got to bring the heat on Drew Pine if they're going to throw the ball. And in doing so, they confused him. He was not able to take advantage of some of what was open downfield.
If I remember correctly, didn't they just keep sending corners because he's not going to throw to receivers?
That was exactly right. They kept bringing the heat. They kept finding ways to confuse Drew Pine.
Yeah.
And because the ground defense was good, Notre Dame couldn't really run to the level that they wanted. And because Drew Pine wasn't good enough through the air to really take advantage, alas, that's why Navy was able to build up some momentum and make that game closer in the end.
So you have a clearly better team, but two teams playing overseas. And if you remember, if you go all the way back to 2022, once again, Europe was the only continent in which Northwestern could win a game. So you had the weirdness of Nebraska being down last year and Northwestern being more prepared and, being better in bigger moments. Are you worried at all about the strange nature of playing in Dublin for these two teams with a big spread that points to Notre Dame being the clearly better and more talented team, but the combination of it being overseas, week one, new quarterback, new coordinator, new coach for Navy, new full-time, that kind of thing, that it's sort of a stay away, or are you confident enough in Notre Dame to feel good about that number?
I feel pretty good about the number, and here's why. I mean, we talked about what they did to Drew Pine. I don't think they can do that with Sam Hartman. I just don't think they can, and I get that it's week 0 and the team might not be firing on all cylinders quite yet, but I don't think they can take that same tactic with Sam Hartman. Last season, and I cannot emphasize this enough, and it was true in more games than just the Navy game, Notre Dame needed to establish the run to open up that passing game. But with Hartman, I think now as QB1, and especially in this game, Dan, I think we see the opposite. Essentially, I think Navy still wants to bring the pressure because they know they don't have those athletes to match up in space. So the softer coverage angle for them will not necessarily work, but the pressure won't affect Hartman the way it affected Drew Pine.
Yeah, and especially having that rib out of the way, right? That he's just got as loosey-goosey as ever, Ty.
He'll be free and clear.
Yeah.
I think we'll see much more effectiveness in the passing game. I think a lot of that goes without saying this season. But I expect bigger plays in the passing game.
Okay.
And I think maybe we'll see some of the ground game later on as things start to kind of shake out. Maybe Navy wears down a little bit. But I am hopeful as a Notre Dame fan that we start seeing some names. We start seeing some names out wide, get a better sense for what this receiver room looks like. They have options. We just didn't see a whole lot of production from them a year ago. So I'm excited for it. It'll be great to just have Notre Dame out there. It'll be a really big deal for Notre Dame. I know it's just the Navy matchup, right? If you want to say it that way. But having kind of the national stage, like it's the first game, right?
It's the first game. Yeah.
Having that stage, I think, will be an opportunity for them to kind of cleanse the palate from a year ago and start fresh with an exciting new chapter led by Sam Hartman.
Well, Navy, you give Navy the advantage in terms of being more efficient at traveling across seas. Yes, the United States Navy.
Correct.
Is there anything about the pace of play that Navy, if they're playing all right, that just keeps the ball away from Notre Dame? And not that Notre Dame won't win because of it, but maybe that over doesn't hit. Maybe that spread doesn't quite come to fruition. Any concern there?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really, because I think the game is going to take a much different tenor than it did last year. I don't think it's going to be a struggle to establish Notre Dame on the ground. I think it's going to be right out of the chute Sam Hartman throwing it, and that will change the complexion of the game. If you're an option team, if you're Navy, you don't want to fall down early. You don't want to go 3 and out a couple times early. That sets the whole thing back. That doesn't really work with the formula. And I think Notre Dame can do that. I've got them something like 38-14 in this matchup.
I'm going to go against you just because I'm making the case for all these reasons. I'm going to take the points. I think Notre Dame wins by 17, but I think the possessions will be limited enough. If you have that combination, look, Navy's pass defense was atrocious, but if Navy can get off the field a couple of times, even on offense, if they're not scoring, I think they're going to chew enough clock that I think it's going to be difficult to separate. So I'm going to take those points. We disagree, but keep that 17 number in mind. We'll talk about it later. I promise you. Okie dokie.
5:30 CBS Sports Network. UTEP. The Miners -1. Squaring off against Jacksonville State. Welcome to FBS football. Jacksonville State. It is their first FBS game, It is at home. The temperature at kickoff in Jacksonville, Alabama. 98 degrees, Dan. It'll be a hot one. Like 7 inches from the midday sun.
You went with Santana instead of 98 degrees after very specifically saying kickoff temperatures are going to be right at 98 degrees. Okay, that's a choice. I do cherish you from the depths of my soul. It's beyond my control. Okay. The coach, yes. I'm listening.
The coach of Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks, for those of you wondering at home, is Rich Rodriguez. You remember him?
Of course.
Still around, still running the crap out of the ball. He's got 16 starters back, 9 on offense, 4 on the offensive line. That should bode well for the system. I think because it's Rich Rod, because he's got a lot back, because the Gamecocks actually are pretty solid at the FCS level, I think they're going to be a popular pick to win this game outright. Obviously, the point spread feels like it's a bit of a coin flip as well. My issue here is that UTEP was a fringe bowl team last
2 years
season.
ago. Oh, last season too. Yeah, but they made the bowl 2 years ago. Yep.
Fringe bowl team last season with some qualifiers. The underlying numbers weren't great. And now a lot of the production is gone on offense from a year ago. Veteran quarterback and Gavin Hardison. The lines, I think, are going to be way more physical than Jacksonville State. I get why the line is low, but I'm rolling with the Hardy Boys. Does that work?
Yeah, I'll take it. That's fine.
Rolling with the Hardy Boys. I'm taking UTEP to spoil Rich Rod in the welcome back to the FBS party.
Yeah, UTEP like 1-5 on the road last season, but still I'm going with UTEP here just because they were okay against the run last year. I'm going to say it travels. I think the line plays superior, but yeah, open to being wrong.
That's what you tend to see, right? When some of these teams jump up, you often wonder about like what do they look like when they play against more physical competition? And I think that's sort of the name of the game here. So I'm on UTEP, and you're on UTEP as well. We agree. First time this year.
Yep.
7 p.m. ESPN. It is UMass, and it is New Mexico State. And I can assure most people we're probably not going to be talking more UMass the rest of the year.
2 big name coaches, though, right?
2 big names.
Don Brown, Jerry Kill.
Don Brown and Jerry Kill. UMass was the worst team in college football last year, in FBS college football. And it wasn't really close. Don Brown's first season back coaching UMass since 2008.
Yeah.
I want to say back in like the old A10 and CAA days. 1-11, not good last year.
No.
An absolutely bonkers stat that I found. They went 3 and out 44% of the time on offense last year.
My take is that's too many. Too many 3
It's impossible. It's impossible. 44% of the time. Can't do that. So I'm not overthinking this. Jerry Kill took New Mexico State to a bowl game in year 1. Their over-under this season has them again as like a fringe bowl team. Their defense was actually pretty good last year. So
yes.
I'm going Aggies. They're -6.5. Aggies minus whatever.
Yeah, also very good in the red zone. So in terms of if you're efficient on offense, if your defense took a nice step forward, I think they finished the year winning 6 of 7, something like that, 5 of 6 or 6 and 7. Beat Bowling Green in the bowl game. So yeah. Shout out Las Cruces, New Mexico
Shout
State.
out Las Cruces. You ever been there?
I don't think so. I've been to Albuquerque. I've been to Santa Fe. Have not been outside of those 2 towns in New Mexico.
7 p.m. Fox Sports 1. We've got Ohio and the Bobcats traveling west, squaring off against San Diego State and the Aztecs. San Diego State favored by 2.5 points, Dan. I think this is the game of the day, to be honest with you.
Okay. Explain.
Everyone's going to be talking about Notre Dame and Navy. That's going to get a fair amount of the headlines, and USC and Caleb Williams. We'll see him. This is the game of the day. This is the game of the day. I think primarily because, and I wrote this down, Ohio is a force to be reckoned with.
Don't do it. Not like this. Not in week 0, Ty. Don't lay out. Okay, that's fine.
Force to be reckoned with.
Okay.
And I say that
keep repeating it.
I'm going to keep repeating. I'm going to speak it into existence.
Okay.
Get it on a shirt. Curtis Rourke, the reigning MAC Player of the Year from last season, is back. He is the latest in the Rourke quarterback dynasty. His older brother played for Ohio. Now he is there as well. He blew out his ACL last November, and he's going to be starting this game for the Bobcats. One of these days, a doctor on our Discord or somebody out there in the Verballerhood needs to explain to me how people are healing from ACLs this quickly now, because in my good old days of high school and college, it was always like a 12-month injury. Now it feels like they can do it in a couple weeks. They can just get back to it.
That's how it works now, Ty.
Curtis Rourke is one of those wonderkins, and he is, I think, the name to watch. He was legit very good last season, obviously has the accolades, had a 25-4 passing touchdown to interception ratio. He's 6'5", 230, a mountain of a man, a rocket for an arm. All his receivers are back. His running back is back behind him. And I think if he's healthy, there's no reason to think that this Bobcats team won't again be a very, very good team. Lest we forget, they won 10 games a year ago.
Yes. I still am going to go with San Diego State.
Really?
Yeah.
No, come on. Why?
Yeah, I don't think San Diego State's defense isn't where it was under Rocky Long. It has taken a step back. But if you give me defense, home game, week 1, I just don't think Ohio is going to be rhythmic enough immediately. Quarterback coming off of a torn ACL. There's too many bullet points.
I just don't know what San Diego State's identity is on offense.
Doesn't matter.
And that scares me. They've got the defense to make it a slugfest.
Win every game 13-10. That's the identity.
That's the identity? That's the Iowa.
Yeah.
The Iowa plan. They've got the defense to make it a slugfest. I agree with you there.
Maybe. They lost a couple of pieces in the secondary. Like, I don't think this defense is where it was. I think it's a team that's going to be led by its defense, because I think the offense is still a nightmare, but I don't think they're like going to be a top 15 defense in the country like they were a few years ago.
I kind of like Jalen Maiden at quarterback. I just don't really like the rest of the offense, and I don't know where the points are coming from.
Okay.
And I also think Ohio could be pretty decent on defense this season. I think this is a good team. So they're getting points. Curtis Rourke is coming back off injury. An emotional story. We'll see if he's firing on all cylinders.
Fade the back. But Dan Rubenstein.
Ohio plus 2.5 for this guy right here.
Okay.
And actually, you know what?
Wow.
Lock of the week.
First one of the year, baby. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it. 7:30 SEC Network. We've got Hawaii. We've got Vanderbilt. Okay. Vanderbilt minus 17.5 points at home.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
You don't hear the turn of phrase Vanderbilt minus 17.5 all that often.
No, never.
They completely trucked Hawaii, if I remember, in like a high school stadium last year, because Hawaii Stadium is being redone.
63-10 was the final score last year.
They totally waxed them, and that was in the wake of Todd Graham leaving and the program scrambling, Timmy Chang taking over. That was a different quarterback for Vanderbilt, if memory serves, who's now at Mississippi State, who had like 6 or 7 touchdowns, and I'm in on Vandy. I already told you, this is like a must-win game for the Doors, right?
It is an absolute must-win game.
By the way, for 6.
One of my predictions, one of my over-under bets was Vandy over 3.5.
Yeah, my big take was Vandy's going to a bowl game this year. That's my like spicy prediction for Vandy. So I'm going to give those points. I think Vandy can win this game by 3 touchdowns. I think look, their pass defense last year was atrocious, and we know what Hawaii is going to try and do in airing the ball out. But I think Vandy has a distinct talent advantage. They return enough on offense. The receiving core is intact. I think they're going to score points, and I think they are going to win this game by 3+ touchdowns. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that people are going to look at the games that are being played. Maybe if you haven't been following along on this podcast, or if you're not as ardent a fan as some of the Verballers are, of course, you might look at this and just sort of pan it. Like, who cares? Hawaii, Vanderbilt. But this is interesting to me because over half of the public bets so far are on Hawaii plus the points. Bear in mind the game from a year ago, 63-10. I get that the situation was different.
Yep.
But that was not even a close game. And I think this is a better Vanderbilt team. It could be a worse Hawaii team. I don't know. What I like about Vandy this year is that I think they are better across the board, but especially along the lines. And that's kind of like a Clark Lee special. You know, that's something he wants to do. So I think taken in totality, given the fact that the game is at home in week 0, no team's a finished product, and it can be tough to cover a big spread, especially early on. But I just really like Vandy's continuity and what they've got here. Minus 17.5 feels like a really good play to me.
This is our hydration station game of the week, by the way, because it's going to be 100 degrees in Nashville on Friday. And then on Saturday in Nashville, 96 degrees with scattered showers, Ty.
What?
Do you understand the humidity that's going to be involved in this matchup? What time is kickoff? Do you have it in front of you?
Kickoff in this game is 7:30 on SEC Network.
So if you have scattered showers throughout the day with temps high 90s and the humidity that's going to be involved, I'm cramping just thinking about it. I need to find a banana. I need to find some sports drinks, some Gatorade, whatever, because this one is going to be drenched. Oof.
Yeah, I got that one too.
Okay, hydration station. Continue.
Pull that one on the board. 8 p.m. Pac-12 Network, RIP.
Aww.
We've got San Jose State. We've got USC. We've got the Trojans favored by 30.5 points. Speaking of big point spreads, good Lord.
30.
What's left to say about USC at this point, right? Like, we know that the offense is going to be electric. I think they could score 40 points in the first half, for all we know, in this game. San Jose State was a bowl team last season. I think they'll be a fringe bowl team again this year. At a minimum, we know they're going to have competent quarterback play because Siobhan Cordero is still around. Was actually very good last season. He had over 3,200 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. His backup's your boy Jay Butterfield. Remember him?
My guy who didn't play in it all for Oregon. Yeah.
Your guy Jay Butterfield. Yeah. How do you feel about this big point spread?
I generally fine, because you're right that USC does have that potential to score 40 in the first half. The big deal to me is, what does USC's defense look like? Even last year, who did they open up with? Rice, I want to say. They were giving up 5, 6, 7 yards a carry on certain drives. Like, it's a different year. It's a different defense. I want to see how that side of the ball comes together for USC. San Jose State and USC last year, this doesn't carry over to this year, but coincidentally enough, both top 10 turnover margin teams in the nation. So they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be trying to force fumbles, obviously confuse quarterbacks and force picks. They both have extremely experienced quarterbacks. One of those quarterbacks happens to be a lot better than the other one of those quarterbacks. Right. Caleb Williams is sensational. How do you run out of adjectives to describe him in this specific game, week 1, in year 2 for Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, a little bit of reshuffling on both sides of the ball. Man, 30 points week 1. I'm inclined to give it just
Wow.
because with San Jose State's offense, I don't expect them to be able to be all that successful pounding the ball like Pac-12 teams will be against this USC front. I don't think they're going to be able to match up well enough to control the clock. And so I think they're going to be off the field quickly, and I think USC just scores so quickly that I'm going to give those points. Sorry, Ty. It's not a sexy pick here.
You're giving the points now. I thought you were going to...
Sorry. No, yeah, I'm giving the points.
You're giving the points, so you're taking USC.
Yeah, because I think USC is going to score too quickly, and I think San Jose State won't be able to possess the ball often enough that if you're giving the ball back quickly, it's going to be Caleb Williams over the top or Caleb Williams eating up yards on the ground. And I don't have a good enough reason for San Jose State to hang around for a long time. So,
and that's my point.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go San Jose State there, but I'm glad we agreed.
No, the reason I'm not is because I don't think they can match up in the trenches well enough to, draw out longer drives and, play small ball enough that USC is only scoring 38 and only wins this game 38-13. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep the ball.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. One of the big overarching questions this year is USC's defense and whether it can improve. It's not just a USC Pac-12 question. It's sort of one of the big questions, the big overarching things that we talk about with college football. And how they do on that side will really dictate how far they can go. I think San Jose State, to some extent, can throw in USC, and we're going to get some sense for what they're made of in the secondary. Also, how Bear Alexander looks up front is something that I'm going to be
Anthony
watching.
Lucas, a couple big names,
couple big names. I agree. I don't think San Jose State can score. I don't think they can make this smaller ball than USC wants to play. This feels like 55-17, something like that to me.
We were so close. I had 55-20.
Yeah. Keep that in mind. Keep that score in mind as well. I'm going USC minus whatever. The only thing to watch here, could see a backdoor cover.
Okay.
Could see a backdoor cover situation, but I'm on USC minus whatever.
Okay. Yeah. We agree. Next game.
Final game. A very limited week 0 slate. We've got a 9 p.m. slot on CBS Sports Network. It is between Florida International, FIU, and Louisiana Tech, known here in these parts as La Tech. La Tech favored by 11 points, Dan. I wrote another one down. I don't know if you want to hear. Guess who's Bach? Bach again?
Oh, no. What are we doing here?
Hank Bachmeier's back. Tell a friend, Dan Rubenstein.
Yeah, the Sonny Cumbies, Louisiana Tech.
He is back. He comes down to Louisiana Tech from Boise State. The most interesting thing about Hank Bachmeier outside of his transfer may be the fact that he has younger brothers named Tiger, Bear, and Buck, which you and I discussed at one point.
I love all of that,
last season. But it's an interesting matchup on a couple different fronts. Both of these teams bring back a lot from last season. FIU and Louisiana Tech, 18th and 26th, respectively, in terms of returning production. Both bring back more on defense. The problem for both is that their defenses also stank last year.
Yes.
They were really bad. And it kind of, it speaks to the whole Bill Connolly conundrum that he poses often when he does his previews, when he looks at returning production and says, well, is it a good thing that this side of the ball brings back so much given where they were at a year ago? I don't trust either defense. FIU and Louisiana Tech played last year. FIU won that game in a bit of a shootout. So I'm taking points if I can get them. I don't know who wins. I don't necessarily care who wins, but FIU getting 11 with the state of these defenses to me feels like the play.
So plus 11, you're taking
plus
FIU.
11, yeah.
I think I agree with you. By the way, this is last year's number 124 against 125.
Bad, right?
Points
really
per drive
bad.
defense. They did play last year. FIU beat Louisiana Tech. Yeah, man. I don't know.
Take the points. Just take the points and move on.
It's not going to be that fun a game, which means it's going to be a crazy fun game. It's going to be a weird game. I don't know. The other thing I had forgotten about before looking this game up is FIU was the team in South Florida to hang with Middle Tennessee last season.
Oh,
they were
right.
the team
Right.
in South Florida to hang with Middle Tennessee. They lost that game by 5, but they were right there. So there's that.
Let's get to your questions. That does it.
Oh, yeah.
For week 0, we had a bunch of questions come in all across the Verballerhood via Twitter or X, whatever we have to say now, Instagram, Patreon.
Got a lot of Zeets? Is that what happened?
Zeets? Yeah, we got some Zeets here. Let's get to questions.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
You've got mail on the Solid Verbal.
Each week we like to play homage. Is that what we do?
We like to pay homage.
Homage. You want to get some questions?
To those of you who write in, solidverbal@gmail.com. Those of you who send in Zeets.
Yeah, catch us on X, baby. Catch us on X at Solid Verbal. Yeah.
Where do you want to go first?
Solid Slate, our friend Connor. Best week 0 storyline to watch. From a purely narrative standpoint, Notre Dame separation, USC defense. Yes? Is there anything else? You're making Curtis Rourke proclamations in this moment as well, I guess.
I was going to say the great Rourkening, I think, goes without saying at this point. Jacksonville State's first game on the FBS level will be intriguing, just to see how they match up. But no, I think at least what we're going to be talking about is, can Notre Dame separate from Navy, and does USC's defense, do they look better?
And remember, a few weeks ago, we got a question asked in this very segment on this very type of show. What kind of result? It was only on verballers.com. What kind of result or what could happen in this season for you to immediately think it's a failure no matter what the record is? And Ty very plainly stated and agreed with me. If Notre Dame loses to Navy, no matter what happens the rest of the year, it's kind of a failure.
Yeah, I'm quitting the podcast if that happens. I'm done. You're going to have to find somebody else who can fill in, and you might have to do that anyway with the state of my voice at the moment.
True, fair.
But I'm done. I'm out if Notre Dame loses week 1.
You're starting a team for this season. You're allowed to pick one team's position group to start. Which do you pick? And examples, this is from Dennis: Michigan's offensive line, Ohio State's wide receivers, Georgia's defensive line.
You're a big D-line guy.
Yes. I would say whichever defensive line you feel best about in this great nation. You know, it's probably still Georgia, considering the ceiling and how they've recruited there and the depth of where they've recruited. There's a bunch of interesting ones.
I like Clemson's. I think Clemson's D-line would be pretty
Texas's is in a very good place right now. Ohio State has JT Tuimalu and Jack Sawyer. Like, there's quality there for Ohio State. There's a lot of really good ones. I guess Georgia's defensive line, because there's so much that you can cover for with a dominant defensive line. If you have average corners, well, your defensive line is completely abusing an offensive line and getting to a quarterback. Well, your linebackers aren't making plays. Well, they don't need to, because the defensive line is, funneling everything inside, and it's just making their job much easier. And so you disrupt so much of a game plan with a confusing, overwhelming defensive line that I love a great offensive line. You can push a team around and win a game slowly. That's great. You protect your quarterback. That's great. You have game-changing receivers. That changes game plans. But to me, still, I'm taking that defensive line. I just am. So
I think D-line's the way to go with this answer, honestly. Dennis zeeted this to us, I believe.
Yeah. Alabama's a good option there as well, but a lot of youth coming in. Keon Keeley going to get into the rotation. I don't know. I'm still going with probably any of those defensive lines, I think, is the move.
As a secondary point, if we're going to talk about the other side of the ball, I don't think it's skill positions. I don't think it's quarterback. I think it's line. I think it's Michigan or Georgia's offensive line. If you prefer that side of the ball for your answer, I would pick one of those two lines.
But we were asked,
but I'm saying if you were playing the home game here.
Yeah.
If you're playing the home game, I'd probably go Michigan or Georgia's offensive line if you prefer that side of the ball.
Hold on. I think I'm going to take exception. You said it's not quarterback. You'd rather have a great offensive line than a great quarterback?
I think you could do more with a good offensive line. I mean, I'd love to have a great quarterback, but if you don't have the great quarterback and you do have the line, you could get by with, a good running game. You can get by with an average quarterback who has time to throw to a tight end or an open receiver otherwise.
Well, Ian Book had a great offensive line. You want Ian Book Notre Dame, or this year's Sam Hartman with an okay offensive line, or a pretty good offensive line?
Ian Book was the winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. He did okay.
Right. I know, but what I'm saying is, if I gave you the option of watching Ian Book Notre Dame this year or Sam Hartman Notre Dame, 2 different offensive lines. I think you're probably taking Sam Hartman. An average line with a good quarterback or a good quarterback with an average line, I'm taking the quarterback.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, it's okay. We disagree. We can agree to disagree. Next question. Matt, how well does Dillon Gabriel need to play to avoid hearing calls for Jackson Arnold? Spencer Rattler heard Caleb Williams' name coming from the stands in Memorial while he was still undefeated, though his play was unremarkable, especially when he was finally benched at Red River. Different head coach, different situation because Dillon Gabriel was not, day one Oklahoma, whereas Jackson Arnold is and will be. But do you think there is pressure on Dillon Gabriel after some inconsistent play, obviously injury issues that are out of his hands last season? But Oklahoma, in a lot of ways, was a mess last year.
Right.
Do you think there is added pressure because of a 5-star true freshman quarterback on Dillon Gabriel to be essentially the best or one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the Big 12?
I think there's pressure. I don't know if it's quite the same as Spencer Rattler, though. I think the expectations were different. Spencer Rattler came in and I feel like almost instantly was branded as a potential Heisman contender.
Right.
Especially playing for Lincoln Riley. And if I remember correctly at the time, there was a lot of undercurrent of maybe he's not the best teammate. Maybe there's some strife among the team with respect to Spencer Rattler. I don't know. There's been such of an overhaul at Oklahoma since Lincoln Riley left, and starting anew with Brent Venables, I just feel like that buys Dillon Gabriel, a lot of goodwill. His numbers were pretty good last year when he did get healthy.
Right.
And when he was out there playing, I don't know if it was so much a problem with the offense, if you're an Oklahoma fan, as it was the defense. I'm so focused on that defense, and hopefully the defense getting better now in year 2 under Brent Venables, that it's hard for me to find a situation in which the burden of this whole thing collapsing falls on Dillon Gabriel and not Ted Roof or Brent Venables.
I think it's also a little bit different. The comparison's a little bit not apples to apples because it was Spencer Rattler's 3rd year at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley in which things went sideways.
Right.
He redshirted, they won, and then they won the Big 12, and then things go sideways. So the expectation is through the roof for any Lincoln Riley quarterback, given the Heisman trophies, given the number 1 overall pick. Spencer Rattler, 5-star coming in, next big thing after 3 or 4 dudes. So with Dillon Gabriel, with a new coaching staff, with a new coordinator, with Jackson Arnold being a true freshman, right? And obviously Caleb Williams was as well. I just think there was something more physically impressive about Caleb Williams as a true freshman, that even if he couldn't fully capture the offense, which Jackson Arnold shouldn't be able to fully capture the offense as a true freshman, that he could make plays in other ways, in remarkable ways. I think it's different because of that specific context. But if he's average, if he's only pretty good, but people are tantalized and yelling for Jackson Arnold, it'll be used against Oklahoma on the recruiting trail. Why would you transfer to Oklahoma? The crowd's going to turn against you. That's just what's going to happen. So
yeah, I think the more likely scenario, and I hate to say this, I'm not rooting for this, but Dillon Gabriel's not a big kid.
No.
He's not big. He's 5'11".
Yeah, he's been beat up.
And he's gotten beat up in the past. I think the more likely scenario is not Dillon Gabriel being replaced because of performance, but unfortunately, because there is a bit of a track record here, I think the more likely outcome would be we'd see Jackson Arnold because of injury.
Okay. And the ability to turn to Jackson Arnold, while luxurious to turn to a 5-star backup quarterback, you're also kind of saying we're willing to take some losses this year if you're Oklahoma, which I think the ceiling for 2023 is clearly higher with Dillon Gabriel than Jackson Arnold. The ceiling overall is probably higher with Jackson Arnold. So, no, it's fascinating to watch, but no, if he's average to below average, yes, there's going to be that drumbeat, but otherwise I don't see it happening, at least in the short term. Next question?
I agree. Next question. Let's do it. Let's keep going.
How will Texas go 8-4 this year? Heather wants to know. Ty.
I got Texas in my playoff.
I know you do, but if you are going to be the architect of Texas's 8-4 2023, from where do the losses come and why?
God, Heather.
Find me 4.
Why do you have to do this to me? It's hard enough putting Texas in the playoff, and then I got to get questions like this.
It's at Tuscaloosa, it's Oklahoma, Kansas State, and take your pick of TCU, Iowa State, Baylor.
Kansas?
Well, Kansas is at home.
Kansas is at home, but I mean, that's how it happens, the way you described it.
I would circle Iowa State as being especially trappy. After Kansas State, TCU, before Texas Tech to finish out the year.
How it happens is you've got the loss on the road at Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the loss to Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout, and then there, two of the other teams that you mentioned. Kansas could come in and win a shootout. Kansas State could come in and win. Obviously, they're in a pretty good spot just as a program. Back-to-back weeks against TCU and Iowa State, both on the road, I want to say, feels pretty tricky to me.
Sure.
Texas Tech, we didn't even mention Texas Tech, but we're both pretty high on the Red Raiders. They could come in late in the season and pull an upset. So I don't think this is an easy schedule by any stretch for Texas. I think Texas is in a good place from a talent perspective. I think they've been building. That's why I feel good about the Longhorns. But the schedule is not a picnic by any stretch. So it's definitely possible. As for how it happens, as for why it would happen, maybe the offense isn't as good as you and I are expecting it to be. I don't know how likely that is, but
right.
Like, what if the ground game takes a big step back with Bijan Robinson now playing for the Falcons, and suddenly Quinn Ewers comes in and can't shoulder the burden, or Quinn Ewers gets hurt again, and Arch Manning or whoever is behind him.
That was a little bit too close for comfort for me when you say Quinn Ewers shouldering the burden with his injury last year. But yeah.
Oh, too close to the bone?
Yeah. Oh, God. Still going with the idioms, Ty. Be cool, man. Be cool.
But maybe, right? So maybe that's a scenario in which things come off the swivel a little bit. Or maybe the defense takes a step back. Again, I don't think that's likely. I actually feel better about the defense than anything. But if the offense has to keep pace with higher scoring teams because the defense is not living up to its end of the bargain, with this schedule, 8-4 is possible. It's what scares me, what really skeeves me out about my Texas playoff pick.
Yeah.
First off, I needed a fourth team, and Texas felt like the one that made the most sense. Not because I am committing myself whole hog to this notion that Texas is a playoff team. Mm-hmm. I get it. There's a stigma there. I don't feel great about it either, but that was the direction I went to. That's where I committed myself when I had to make my playoff prediction. What really, really frightens me is that I look at the schedule and I say, it's a good team, but the margin's very thin. With this schedule, the margin between 10-2 at 8-4 is really, really thin. And that's kind of creeping me out a little bit.
There's also, we believe Quinn Ewers to be good, to very good.
But what if he's not?
Counterpoint, is he though?
I know.
Right? Because last year, look, he's beat up. He comes back from the injury quickly. It's admirable. He toughed it out. But Texas was not good on offense in a lot of second halves against these teams. And that to me is the concern. I'm not worried about the defense at all. I think the defense is going to be. So when you talk about like, oh, could they lose a shootout to Kansas? I don't think the Kansas game is going to be a shootout. I think Texas should comfortably win that game because I don't believe in Kansas's defense to the point where it actually will matter. Like, I still think they're like a bowl-ish program right now. And Texas is built to be, as you pointed out, like a 9-10 win team right now. And so to me, it's like on the road at Iowa State that like they could just lose that game 17-16 and have the ball like inside the 45 times in the second half. Like that just has the trappings. So that's to me how Texas, it's the offense not getting out of its own way. It's not a Bijan Robinson thing. Like he was on the team last year when they were struggling in those games. So I don't know. I'm fully in on Texas being a really good team this year, but how they go 8-4 is clear as day. It's in 4K to me, Ty.
All right, next question.
Next.
Will
I ever be happy as a Miami Hurricanes fan again? Nico wants to know.
I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm on the over. I'm on the over 7.5. It was one of my over under bets.
Yeah.
I think Miami is built really soundly this season. Again, on paper, they should be really solid along the lines, which is the Mario Cristobal way. It's the way he wants to build his football teams. It's the way he's done it since he's been doing this. I also understand that there is a huge red flag that should go up, that does go up, even for me, whenever you start talking about a team that has too much talent to fail. You said the same thing a little bit last year with Miami. It was newer then, and
turns out they weren't as talented.
Yeah. So, again, maybe I'm committing the same sin 2 years in a row, but I feel like Miami is too talented to be a 7-win team, to be a 5-win team.
That's just this year. But he's saying ever again.
He'll be
ever again. How do you define happiness as a Miami fan? It's national championships, right?
It's probably national championships, yeah. But I think in the short term, I would be happy if I were a Miami fan if we came out of the 2023 season with Tyler Van Dyke and felt like we got back to the promise of his freshman year, or the promise of 2 years ago, I guess, when it felt like this kid was going to be a pro prospect. He could be top 10 draft pick as a quarterback in the league. We obviously did not see that last year. It didn't come anywhere close to it. He was hurt. The offense maybe wasn't fit for his skill set or the guys that they had on hand. But I'd be looking at this if I were a Miami fan. And I'm not, but this is just a very limited field of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be looking at this in terms of the offense and saying, if we can get back to some semblance of explosivity and not this pickleball stuff that we saw a lot of last year, that'd feel much, much better.
If I gave you an over-under of 0.5 Mario Cristobal playoff wins at Miami by 2030. So
2030? Over.
2030.
Over.
You think Miami will win a playoff game by 2030? Because I think that's how I would define happy as a... Miami doesn't just want to be in the grouping of great teams. They want to be separated with other top tier.
Over.
You got to win a playoff game.
Over. Can I put money on that right now? I'll take the over.
You want to look at the future of Miami quarterback recruiting right now?
No, I don't. I really don't.
It's not especially sexy.
I want to go over
in this very specific moment. So I might go under.
Over.
I might go under. Okay. I'm inclined to go under. Next question. Will he ever be happy again?
That's a personal question. I can't answer that for Nico.
There will be a special year. I'm not sure it's going to happen under this specific coaching staff. Okay. Next question. Who is your Big Ten West dark horse, and why is it Nebraska?
Why is it Nebraska? It's not Nebraska. Is it Nebraska for you?
This year?
Yeah.
No. Illinois.
No. It's Illinois. It's got to be Illinois.
Alt aboard for Luke Altmaier. No? I hate myself, Ty.
I had two that were much better than that one.
I just coming up with this on the spot. You were sitting at home with your whiteboard
I'm
late at night.
I'm writing material. I am writing material.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie.
I think it's probably Illinois. If you give me a team who can ugly something up as a dark horse, I don't think they're the favorite, but if you give me somebody who can ugly it up, you give me an experienced coach, interesting skill talent, which they obviously have at receiver and running back to me, I'm going to go with Illinois in the short term. I think certainly Matt Rule's the better coach between he and Brett Bielema because of I actually don't know about that.
I think he's he's a better program builder.
Yes.
He's got more of a track record as a program builder than Brett Bielema, but
not in the Big Ten West, Ty.
Well, not in the Big Ten West, but to be fair, we have not seen him in one place long enough.
True.
To see what he can do when he actually gets the program built. He's always jumped to a bigger or better job.
Yeah, I'm going to take Illinois as the dark horse this season because I think they are building upon something, whereas Nebraska is starting from square one. So I'm going to take Illinois there as a dark horse. We discussed, the Wisconsin-Iowa matchup. Minnesota's interesting to me, but I'm not sure I love where they're at on offense. Illinois is the dark horse. How about that?
Illinois' dark horse. The schedule, I think, is favorable. They don't have to play Michigan or Ohio State from the East. They get Penn State at home in week 3. Penn State at that point in the season. Look, I've talked about that all offseason. That's a game that Penn State loses, or that ends up being very, very close in a weird way. They also get Wisconsin at home. The only road games on this slate in their Big Ten play are Purdue, Maryland, Minnesota, and the Iowa game, second to last week of the year. So that's workable. It's not an easy schedule by any stretch, but I think it's very, very workable. So Illinois is the answer here, the only answer.
Gary, can you pick out some teams that have very easily achievable, quote, failure seasons that could possibly lie ahead? A few I see are Ohio State, 11-1 with a loss to Michigan, losing the East. Texas losing the Big 12 in a year. They're the overwhelming favorite after not winning it since 2009. Ty, what were you? Had you met Kate in 2009?
No.
What year did you meet Kate?
No, you're gonna make me do math.
The Raiders.
Yeah. The Raiders.
What year did you meet Kate?
2011.
Okay. I met Jody 2014. So,
Okay.
Texas, it's been a minute. And we've been married and I have children since Texas has...
2011, 2012. Yeah, it's been...
Okay. Texas.
while.
Okay, so, and my Maryland Terrapins, this is Gary speaking, 7-5, including another losing season in Big Ten play. Would love to hear if you know of any more possible failure seasons that are very realistic to see happening. Ty.
Well, I mean, I'll come back to the two that I've been talking a lot about. Penn State going 10-2 with losses only to Ohio State and Michigan would be a failure.
Yeah, there's a lot of humps that have not been summited.
Penn State going 10-2 with those losses would be a failure. I think Notre Dame 9-3 losing to Ohio State, USC, and Clemson would also be a failure.
Yeah, you need to win one of those if you're Notre Dame.
Got to win one.
Yep.
Got to win one. Even if they go 9-3, having beaten one of those teams, but losing to a team like an NC State, I think that would be less of a failure than going 0-3 against those three big guns that are on the schedule for Notre Dame.
Man, Florida State being 10-1 heading into the Florida game and losing that and losing a playoff spot because a C-plus Florida team beat Florida State. I could see that as potential failure.
That would be brutal.
Yeah, if Alabama is not representing the West in the SEC championship game this year, consecutive seasons,
That's a failure.
that's a failure. So good season that is ultimately a failure given expectations, given the inability to get over a very specific hump. Like I mentioned this, like Oregon go 10-2 and lose to Oregon State and Washington, but beat USC and Utah, total failure. Absolute total failure. In the last season of the Pac-12, in the last real season of college football, according to me, that would be a total and complete catastrophe.
What represents failure for a school like Texas A&M this year? I think Texas A&M is so interesting because we know it's not a talent issue. It just can't be. It can't be a talent issue with the talent that they've amassed over the last couple of recruiting cycles.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know about some of their concerns with their offense and perhaps Jimbo Fisher's stubbornness with respect to handing some of that control over to Bobby Petrino. But ultimately, it's a really tough schedule if you're A&M. And you go 8-4 and be decidedly better than you were a year ago. And that would not be the kind of thing that I think fans are excited about. So what represents success if you're an A&M fan?
Success? Well, if Connor Wegman is one of the best four quarterbacks in the SEC, that's an overwhelming success. Because if Connor Wegman's one of the best four quarterbacks in the SEC, so let's say, alongside Jaden Daniels, Carson Beck, Joe Milton, I don't know. There's a bunch that are good. But if he is one of the best four, they should win 9 games, right? Against a tough schedule. They should win 9 games. And so what represents failure if you're A&M right now? If they lose at home to Mississippi State, if they lose at home to South Carolina, if they lose to Arkansas, neutral site, if they lose to Auburn, if you lose a couple of those, that means you're probably going 7-5 with how the rest of the set schedule shakes out. And if you're not good enough to beat one of those teams at home, you're probably a 7-5-ish win team. If they don't have a top 50 offense with what they return and great receivers, a much healthier offensive line, and a Connor Wegman. How about just Connor Wegman at quarterback, who was looking like he was emerging at the end of last season? I think it's a failure. So I don't know if there's a specific number, but if you lose at home to any of those teams who are not as talented, who don't have a quarterback of the future in the same way, total failure.
I agree. Let's move on.
Next question.
Next question.
That was from Gary from verballers.com.
Boom.
How will you celebrate the first Oregon-Penn State Big Ten matchup? I'll take Ty to Eugene. I've been very clear that I enjoyed the hell out of my time in State College, but I have no intention of ever attempting to travel to State College ever again.
Okay, so what? All right, so if we're going to Eugene for the game,
yes,
out there. What are we doing for the game when it's here? You want to come to my house?
Yeah, I'll come over to your house and watch it with you.
Come
We
over
can
to my
grill or
house. Yeah.
buy me a pizza oven or something. No, I'll bring my own pan. I'll make a pan pizza in your oven. Yeah, we'll watch it together.
We'll watch it together. That's what we'll do.
When are we getting has the Big Ten announced when they're actually releasing the 2024 schedule? Because they have to revise.
Yeah,
they announced the matchups, but not the dates, I think.
I feel bad for the guy that had to put together the first schedule reveal, because now they got to do the whole damn thing over again.
Yeah.
So I don't know when they plan to give us more details on that, but
that'll be fun. You know, that's actually Oregon Penn State. First of all, they have played. That was that Rose Bowl in the 94 season, so the 95 Rose Bowl. I remember that was kind of my first real awareness of Oregon football. Like, I knew about the state, but didn't know that they were the Ducks or anything. I was 10 years old, 11 years old or something at that time. And I remember on a road trip to Northern California, we stopped off at the Nike outlet, which all cool people do, Ty. Stopped off at the Nike outlet, and you can see in the background, if you're watching this on youtube.com/@solidverbal, I'm pointing to a vaguely green blurred out hat in the background. It's an old Oregon hat with like carpet fuzz UO. Like, that's the material that makes up the UO on top of it. So it would be a really cool rematch of, I mean, that season was what propelled Oregon into convincing Phil Knight that they needed an indoor practice facility and investing a ton in the program. So it's actually a kind of a huge deal matchup, even though I want to say it was Kerry Collins and Kajana Carter just demolishing Oregon in that Rose Bowl.
yeah. Look, I mean, if Penn State and Oregon,
that's a big deal matchup to me. So I would love to watch it with you.
If they make the Big Ten championship and play each other, we can go on a bender in Indianapolis, man.
Las Vegas, Nevada, kind sir. Isn't that the rumor that they're moving? I don't think I've seen anything official.
I know. What a terrible idea. I hate that. I hate that idea. I really do. I hate it. Anyway,
okay.
Next
Two more questions. Jason, will realignment increase or decrease viewership in the next year? So, or not in the next year, next year. So the 2024 season, 5 years, 10 years. I say yes, no.
I don't know what it's going to do in 5 and 10 years. College football changes so quickly in 5 weeks. If you're asking me to give a projection 5 years from now, I can't do that. But I can tell you what I think happens next year. I'm really excited about next year. And I think a lot of other folks, after they have a chance to let all this digest, will be as well.
Okay.
There's definitely going to be a bit of charm that gets lost with college football next season, because it feels like college football goes corporate in 2024 and beyond. I get that completely. We have people writing in. You and I talk about it separately. I feel the same.
Okay.
But there is a novelty to next season that cannot be undersold. And I think just in terms of how people pay attention to the season, oftentimes what we see, and we track this stuff, obviously, you get to mid-October, your team's got 2 losses at that point. Suddenly you feel like you're out of it. You stop paying attention. Stop downloading the show. Hope you don't stop downloading the show, but people do. And every college football podcast has that exact same pattern in their numbers. I think next season the interest will be prolonged. The interest will be prolonged because there'll be more teams that are still in it with a shot at the playoff later in the year. I think the playoff will make things very, very interesting. Remember, the first week of playoff games are on campus. There's a novelty factor to that we've never seen in college football before. And those games start when we're accustomed to seeing like the Bahamas Bowl, the very, very first week of bowl games, December 17th-ish.
Yeah.
That's when we're going to get those first on-campus playoff games. So we go right from conference championship week into, kind of like a dead period, 10 days, whatever, to get your house in order. And then we jump right into the playoff. I just think it all happens quickly enough, closely enough to I just think it happens quickly enough, closely enough to what would typically be the college football end of season, that fans will still be engaged, still be interested in it, still willing to watch the playoff. And I think it's going to be the craziest year yet of college football. So I'm excited about it, despite the fact that there's obviously a lot about it that we don't want to like.
So I think next year the ratings are going to be very, very good. I I'm not good at thinking about ratings, figuring out what they mean, whatever. TV
I think
ratings are beyond
They'll
me.
be huge.
I think there's going to be a lot of interest in the sport next year to see about, Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC and Colorado and Deion Sanders in the Big 12, presuming he's still there next season. And the Arizona schools, that's new. Of course, Oregon and Washington, USC, UCLA, and the Big 10. Like, there's a lot of movement around the sport. There's a lot of novelty. I think people are going to be quite interested, certainly with the second year now of more network television at night, in the Big 10, in the SEC, because it's more ABC involvement in the SEC. Certainly now with CBS, NBC, with the Big 10, like there is just going to be a bigger platform. College football is going to be on a bigger stage in 2024 specifically. To bet on almost infinite growth of the sport as it gets more complicated, as we lose rivalries, as the novelty of a 12-team playoff and the novelty of this specific round of realignment. You could have Florida State in a few years if they figure out the financials. Obviously, it's not happening in 2024, or right. Other ACC teams, or maybe Notre Dame joining the Big 10. There's nothing novel about Notre Dame playing Ohio State or Michigan State, or maybe kind of Penn State. But like, they've played these programs recently. They have a history of playing these programs, whereas there's a little bit more of a novelty factor elsewhere. I just think college football is going on a path of being complicated and going away from charm in a way that is going to hurt its growth. And it's always been an older sport. It's always been a sport that has attracted an older audience. And I don't know. I think everything is going to become so fractured even more in entertainment that there's going to be, whether it's more streaming services or more digital entertainment, whatever, that I don't know. I think, you can say that like, well, their ratings share. They're, the people that are actually watching cable TV or watching sports, like college football is still doing well. But I don't know, the advertising industry still needs impressions. You still need, growing numbers. So
right.
I don't know. I think I'm out on college football growing forever. And so the next 5-10 years we're going to reach a point where, why is Indiana in the Big 10? Why is Northwestern in the Big 10?
And that's what I'm worried about.
And
that's what I'm worried about. We talked about that with Dan Carlin. We had him on last episode.
You're going to turn people off who appreciate the college football that they grew up with, and it's going to appear to be foreign to a lot of people if we go down that road. And I don't know. It just seems like the toothpaste is out of the tube. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to podcast. I'm going to do all sorts of fun things around the sport. I'm going to love what the great things about the sport. But there's going to come a day where college football is going to resemble something completely foreign to what a lot of people grew up with. And I don't know if that's going to turn off everybody. I think it's going to turn off a segment of people who are going to say, you know what? There's only 30, however many teams at that point in the NFL. You got recognizable faces year in and year out, and you're not worrying about like sudden transfers and NIL issues and coaches leaving in the same way, that it's just easier to follow. And maybe people start even more making that transition to the NFL and NFL only. I could see that happening. I'm going to appreciate college football for as long as I can. But no, I would bet against infinite growth for the sport.
Last question, Dan.
Last question.
Let's go to Jacoby.
Yes.
When are we going to get to board the Twos Cruise again, Dan?
The Twos Cruise was 2019.
Yeah.
The 2019 season, we did a nautically themed weekly Tuesday show called the Twos Cruise, where we just went after sort of big picture weekly questions, and we did exercises around college football, but we had sound drops and generally tried to become I'm struggling to make a semen joke here, Ty. I really am. If I can't come up with one that's good enough, I'm just going to move forward. But no, we decided to view it through a nautically themed periscope. So we are not going to be returning to the Twos Cruise, though maybe we could do it as like a one-off. We could rent out the college football boat on Lake Wallenpaupack.
Right.
But no, it's the Twos Cruise as a weekly thing. That was a 2019 thing. But we're doing a bunch of other fun stuff with the show, are we not?
I'm so excited. about this season. We talked about our Patreon tiers. We talked about what we're doing with bonus content and how things are going to work on that side. Maybe we could take a few minutes here, just take a knee and talk about what the season has in store for you and I and how
I'm ready. Okay.
How we're going to cover the games. Do you have that sound at the ready?
You're going to have to give me a very specific prompt.
The Saturday sound.
Oh, yeah, of course. What are we doing on Saturday nights, Ty?
Got the shoulders going a little bit over here. So here's the way this is going to work. Take that music down just a little bit.
Yeah, it's fading.
Every Saturday night after college football ends or as it's about to end, you and I are going live. We're going live on YouTube.
Yes.
Live for the world to see. We're going to record our recap episodes. Then they will be made available immediately on our public podcast feed. Of course, you can get the ad-free version over on verballers.com, but no longer do you have to wait until Monday to get the recap of the week that was in college football. Oh, by the way, there will also be another live stream as we prepare for the weeks ahead. You and I are recording this on a Wednesday. This is the last Wednesday you and I will be recording an on-demand episode because Wednesdays around lunchtime, we'll make sure that we post the official time. We'll keep it consistent week in and week out. Wednesdays, we're going to do our preview episodes live on YouTube as well. So 2 live streams for everybody out there. Again, we're going to drop those to the podcast feed right away so that you have more time to listen and react and write in and be part of the Verballerhood, Dan.
Yes.
And then also our third episode will not be on Tuesday, but will be on Mondays because we're going to be recording late at night on Saturdays. There's a pretty strong likelihood we're going to miss a few things here and there.
Yes.
Yeah? Pretty strong likelihood that that's
and we don't
want
to disrespect what happens in the late night Cal Wazoo game or disrespect the crazy performance that Western Michigan had against Ball State, something like that. And so if it happens late, if it happens, at the same time as other huge games and we can't give the game the respect and dignity and time it deserves, we'll hit it Monday.
We'll hit it on Monday. That's the way it's going to work. Monday's going to be dedicated to our burning questions, really things that we had questions about after we had a chance to really think it through, after we got a good night's sleep and realized that we forgot to mention a key point on our Saturday night / Sunday morning recap episode.
Yeah.
The first part of that episode will be available for public consumption. Once we start getting into listener questions, once we start getting into other nuts and bolts of the week that was, that stuff's going to be available over on verballers.com. So 3 episodes for everybody this coming season on Sundays, on Mondays, and on Wednesdays. We'll have bonus content that is available to our Patreon Verballers at verballers.com. Again, go and check that out. That'll be available on Mondays.
Yes.
And, of course, on Thursdays. That is our plan for this coming season. We're so excited about it.
I've been thinking about my Mel Tucker sleep bank for Saturday nights basically all year since we've decided that we're going live late Saturday night with all the full show available immediately thereafter. Yeah. And so if you wake up early Sunday morning for a run or you're going rowing or you're cleaning the house, the episode's going to be there for you Sunday morning, bright and early. But yes, I've already thought about, okay, at what time do I take a coffee nap, a 25-minute, power nap with coffee right beforehand so that you pop right when you wake up? Am I going to take a cold shower at 10:18 p.m., right? All of those things. Am I going to jump rope 3 separate times before we hit record so that I can fake the energy that late at night because I'm an old person now in my 5th decade of life. Been thinking about that for a solid 8.5 months. That's all.
It's going to be a logistical challenge, a Herculean effort for you and I to cover all of these games. But we're excited to do it.
Can't wait.
To do it late on Saturday night. So we hope that those of you who are out there, night owls, if you're out on the West Coast, if you're in Hawaii, perhaps in Australia, we've got all sorts of verballers across the globe. Hope you can join us. Be part of the conversation out on YouTube.
Oh my God. What's going to happen if we make a bad decision food-wise? And we have to quickly...
We can't cut it. It's live.
It's live. You
It's
can cut
live.
it after the fact, but the people watching are going to be in for a treat when Ty discovers the burrito he ordered wasn't exactly the healthiest for his body.
Join us
can't wait.
live on Saturday nights, on Wednesdays, probably at some point in the middle of your workday, and of course on Mondays for our kind of bigger picture episode. I'm
Can't
excited.
wait. Yeah. YouTube.com/the@solidverbal. Subscribe now. That would be my biggest recommendation for all things. We're posting literally every weekday. We're posting videos and certainly during the season live on Saturdays and Wednesdays. And so we'll be posting throughout the day as well on Saturdays. And so listen, man, we're here for you.
We're here for you. We got one final segment, and then we'll let the fine people go, Dan.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Ty versus the world.
Die Welt, le monde, el mundo, Sekai, Świat, Ty versus the world.
Presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
Our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook have resurrected a popular segment
Yes.
from last season. You call it Ty versus the world. It is essentially me against the betting public. Dan, I've got a handful of saucy bets, spicy bets that I want to just put before you today.
Please.
And then I've also got a special parlay, which you can actually go out on the DraftKings app or the DraftKings site and find for yourself. Let's start with our spicy bets. You already heard about Ohio plus 2.5. I feel very, very good
Okay.
about the roarkening that is about to happen
Okay.
in Snapdragon Stadium. So mark me down for Ohio plus 2.5. Mark me down for Vandy minus 17.5 points. I love my Vanderbilt Commodores. Not just the over 3.5 this year. You can still get that bet, but also Vandy minus 17.5 at home against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors.
Giving them a lot of Clark leeway. Okay,
Hey,
that's
yo.
not bad.
And last but certainly not least, UTEP minus 1. I think we both like UTEP minus 1.
We do.
Don't we?
Yes.
Both feel pretty good about that. And to really put a cherry on top of Ty versus the world, let's talk about our special parlay, Dan.
Okay.
Our special parlay this week.
By the way, speak for yourself. This is Ty versus the world. This is not Ty and Dan versus the world.
My special parlay this week. Very contingent on Notre Dame and USC
Ooh.
playing up to their potential. We're calling it the Jeweled Parlay Lay.
Of course we are.
You came up with that name, not me. The Jeweled Parlay Lay. Not the Jeweled Shillelagh, but the Jeweled Parlay Lay.
Well, they're not playing each other.
They're not
we're
playing each other,
honoring
but in
that-
this case, you're rooting for both of them
Yes.
to succeed. So we've got a combination of 4 things that need to happen in order for you to hit this parlay.
Yeah.
Notre Dame needs to win by more than 16.5 points. Remember you said 17 points earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Technically, that would hit.
Yes.
You need Notre Dame minus 16.5. You need Notre Dame to score more than 33.5 points.
Don't hate it.
You need USC to cover a first quarter line of 8.5 points.
Okay.
And you need USC to really go whole hog here and score more than 49.5 points. All 4
Wow.
of those things need to hit. All 4 of those things hit. You will not only win the Jeweled Parlay Lay bet, but you will get it at a price of plus 472, about 5-1.
Wow. That's tantalizing, Ty. I got to tell you.
Tasty. It's tasty. I found it.
It's
for you, the
tasty.
Verballerhood.
And the disclaimer here is the Jeweled Parlay Lay is not in any way affiliated with Star Lotu Lele, right? Am I correct?
Not at all.
All
Not
right,
at all.
just making sure.
Making
or
sure.
lol Lotu Lele.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code SOLID to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That is code SOLID only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8 HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply, Dan. There you go. Ty versus the world. Get your bets in. Get your football in this weekend. It is week 0. I am so excited.
Same. Very much me, too.
Made it the full way through. Make sure you're going out to verballers.com. Check out our Patreon tiers. Make sure you follow along on social media. We'll be tweeting. We'll be zeeting. We'll be zeeting throughout all of the week 0 action. Hope to see you out there as well. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrandt. Football's here. Stay solid.
Peace.